Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I hope everybody's doing well. Welcome to Money in the Morning, aka Economic Elevation, aka Financial Consciousness. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I want everybody to come on in and let me know how you're doing today. I'm doing good. I'm feeling good. I got up this morning. I wasn't in the 5 a.m. club, but I was definitely I think I was in the 6 a.m. club this morning. So health is wealth, and I encourage you to think about taking care of your health is an investing strategy. The more you take care of your health, the more it actually protects your wealth because you don't have to give all your money away to big pharma. Give me a yes if that makes sense to you. All right. So anyway, as we start Monday in the morning, which we do every single morning, you guys know that. I wanted to let you guys know or ask you all about this or talk a little bit about this interesting thing. There's a company called Uncle Nearest. They are a liquor brand. They make whiskey, and a lot of you have asked me about this lawsuit that Uncle Nearest has been facing. It's kind of sad. It's on the messy side, and it involves a bank loan that the company took out, and there is an allegation by the companies that they did not fulfill the expectations and the requirements of their loan covenant, which could be kind of messy, kind of sad. And what I want to do is use this as a financial lesson, and not because I can tell you exactly how this is going to end up or exactly whether or not they are the good guys or the bad guys, but really to kind of talk about financial theory and the economic lessons that exist in this situation. Now, I know that the first instinct for a lot of us is to remember, all the different times where Black wealth was sabotaged or African American people were harmed by this economic system, and we know that that's happened, right? We've talked about that history quite often in this class. But at the same time, we also know that when you sign contracts, there are expectations with those contracts, and so there's that other side of that, meaning that it is possible, that maybe some mistakes were made, and but at the very least, there are lessons that can be learned. And one of the things that I think that I'm not a big fan of is us just automatically jumping in and saying, "Oh shoot, dang it, they did it again. They did it to black people again. They took away Uncle Nearest and his liquor idea, and now they're taking away the business because every time we build a black-owned business, they come and try to tear it down." I don't deny these things. I think racism is 100% real. You guys have heard me talk about it a billion times. But I also think that there's a balance, right? I hope that that makes sense. And let me know, type the word balance in the chat if you get what I'm saying. So balance means we're gonna pay attention, we're gonna study, we're gonna figure it out, we're gonna just and you can have whatever conclusion you want. I do not tell you what to think. I only share perspectives that can help you to come up with your own conclusion in a better way. Now, this morning I want to say thank you to Chanel. I forgot that Chanel was going to come in. She's on our team. And as you know, with next to every great black man is some great black woman or another great black man that is helping him or her to succeed. Chanel's a really important part of our team, and she's right there in the chat. So if you have an issue with anything with the Black Business School, you can talk to Chanel right there, and Chanel will make sure you are taken care of. She will make sure that you are good. We are Boyce Watkins Enterprises in the Black Business School. We are extremely customer oriented. We are extremely invested in making sure that you have more money in your pocket, that your life is better, and that your family is succeeding. We believe in holistic economic education. And also, we believe in what is called the Black Core of Three, which is that Black people should educate our own children, create our own jobs, and support Black owned businesses. So, Chanel isn't just in the chat to support you, but also if you want to join the next cohort of our stock options training class called Coin, Chanel can give you a link to join Coin. So Chanel, if you want to share that link right there in the chat, feel free to do that. We're finishing up this cohort now. We're going to start another one soon. I can't remember the dates. Chanel has the dates. She knows everything. All right, so let's talk about Uncle Nearest and let's break this case down. Give me a yes in the chat if you even know, if you even heard about Uncle Nearest before today. Give me a yes if you know who they are, what they do, where they come from. I think I saw the CEO of Uncle Nearest at InvestFest speaking, And she's a very smart lady, very eloquent, had a lot of interesting things to say, and I think that should all be heard. And I was really impressed that she was speaking about this lawsuit because these lawsuits are complicated. They use everything you say, they use it against you. They come back and next thing you know, it's in court and you're being sued because you used the wrong syllable or something. So just speaking on it requires some courage, and I admire that. Now, here's the thing. So I'm going to summarize the suit. Perhaps, and I'm not a lawyer, right? So if I get something wrong, just chalk it up to the fact that I'm trying to do my best, and I ain't perfect. But basically, they they got this bank loan apparently, and this bank loan was for a lot of money, $108 million. When you borrow $100 million, your P's and Q's you got to be on your P's and Q's, I's dotted, T's crossed, everything else. That's a lot of freaking money. And basically, the bank is saying that Uncle Nearest and their team did not do what they promised they were going to do. So apparently, this loan was collateralized, which means that, and remember, we've talked in this class about the buy, borrow, and die strategy that's used by a lot of wealthy people to basically allow you to acquire assets by using assets that you have. This is why when you're talking about your children, the biggest thing, best thing you can do for your kids is get them a capital base, because if they have a capital base, that's more valuable than a college degree. A person with a capital base doesn't really actually even need a degree. They also don't need good credit. Good credit and college degrees are for people who don't have capital. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that they're worthless. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't have good credit, even if you have capital, or that you shouldn't get a college degree if you have capital. What I'm saying is that if your goal is to make money, if you have capital, then it's very easy to make money. Remember, capital and income, or wealth and income, are connected. I call that the wealth income cycle. And basically, the more wealth you have, the more capital you have, the easier it is to create income. The easier it is to also create leverage, which means you go to the bank and you borrow, because the first thing the bank wants to do is, okay, we'll let you hold something, but are you going to pay us back, right? And if you've got a capital base, then they're like, yeah, sure, we'll loan you money because we know you're going to pay us back. So basically, Uncle Nearest company, they took out this loan, and it was collateralized by apparently these cases of whiskey, right? And effectively, just a long story short, the bank is claiming that Uncle Nearest exaggerated the value of their collateral so they could get a bigger loan. Does that make sense? That the amount of collateral they claim to have, the number of cases of whiskey that they said they told the bank that they had, was not equal to the number that they actually had. Give me a yes if you're picking up what I'm putting down, if you're following this, okay? So, that's a problem. Um, if that's true, then some might even call that a type of fraud. Not that I'm saying that, but that's what it could be called. And ironically, in fact, if you want a little history lesson on this, that is quite similar to what Donald Trump was accused of doing in New York. If you remember, Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, had the big lawsuit against Trump. And the big claim of the lawsuit was that Trump was getting massive loans and collateralizing these loans by overstating the value of his property. Right. So if you have, $1 billion worth of property, they'll loan you this much. But if you somehow argue that you got $2 billion worth of property, they'll loan you that much. And that would be considered a type of fraud if that is the case, right? So just to be quite frank, I see a lot of similarities here in terms of what the accusation is. Very simple. It's like fake it till you make it, basically, right? That's what the allegation is. Like, y'all didn't really have it. You pretended like you had it so that you would gain our trust and confidence to loan you this money. And this circles back to what I've talked to you guys about in terms of Black economics and how trust is a really important part of building an economic system. And this is why for Black people, things like therapy and healthy relationships are extremely important, because if you're traumatized and you're making trauma response decisions toward each other and hurting each other, then that decays the trust. Broken relationships destroys trust, right? People hurting each other destroys trust. People being afraid of other black people, afraid to even loan money to their relatives destroys trust. Like how many of you, let's go back to something I've asked you before. How many of you have ever heard of or said to yourself, this is why I don't loan money to relatives? Anybody ever said that? Anybody ever said that to yourself or heard somebody say that? This is why I don't loan money to family. I think I even heard Magic Johnson actually say, I don't even hire family. I think it was Magic who said that, and I heard a couple of people say that. And what they're really saying to you is that I don't extend leverage or credit to relatives because I don't trust them. That's what they're saying. If I hire you, that means I got to trust you and I'm investing in you. So I'm not going to invest in you because I don't invest in things I don't trust. All a bank loan is an investment of another name. All of that's what a loan is. When the bank says, "Hey, we'll give you $108 million," they're not giving that money out of charity. They're giving that money because they want to make money, right? That's what an investment is. I give you something now, you give me something of greater value later, right? I sacrifice today, I get more tomorrow. That's all investing is. It's as simple as delayed gratification, right? So the point is to say that in general, we don't invest in things that we don't trust. You don't. If you're nervous about something, if you think your cousin's gonna rip you off and financially traumatize you, then hell no, you ain't gonna loan no money, right? So basically, what happens here in these transactions? Let's circle back to Uncle Nearest in the Trump situation. Uh, there was an amount of trust that was built based on collateralization, based on the fact that they felt the collateral was adequate. And they are arguing that their trust was violated. They're arguing that you really weren't as trustworthy as you presented yourself to be. That's all credit scores really tell the lender is that they can trust you, right? So for wealthy people, they in many cases they'll use collateral. Like Elon Musk used collateral to purchase Twitter. He owns a bunch of Tesla stock. He took it to the bank, said, "Hey," and investors, and said, "Hey, I've got this collateral." They said, "Okay, based on the collateral, we'll loan you the money because we trust you." For people that don't have a capital base, which unfortunately is much of the American public, you don't have as much collateral, but you got a credit score, which is kind of like a social collateral, right? If you will, right? Like some sort of recourse, some sort of enforcement action that can be taken in the event that you don't do what you're supposed to do. Now, with that being said, with the Uncle Nearest situation, the difference with the Trump and Uncle Nearest is that in one case, it was the bankers themselves, the private lenders, who basically came forward with the accusation, right? And they basically said that the whiskey that you claim to have, you really don't have. And I even read through and saw some things about possibility that some of that would collateral was sold, which was a violation of loan covenants. And also that even in the beginning, it seems that they're claiming, again, I'm not sure, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not here to talk about their company in a negative way, but that the old numbers were just not even accurate to begin with, possibly. And so what I've seen is that the CEO of Uncle Nearest has said, look, it wasn't our fault. It was a rogue CEO or CFO. The CFO did this, and we didn't know this was happening. And et cetera, et cetera. And then also there was a conversation about a property that was purchased in Martha's Vineyard for about 2.2 million. Again, I don't think there's anything scandalous about that. It's a bougie thing, right? You're selling wine and you have this property in Martha's Vineyard and you host people and then you say, here, drink our wine, and people drink wine and sit at Martha's Vineyard, right? It's fine. Like, Martha's Vineyard's a nice place. I haven't been there, but I've heard great things, right? So, and I thought about going. I'm going to go at some point. When Chris Broussard came and spoke at the All Black National Convention, Chris Broussard is a cool dude. He's on Fox Sports, and he came and spoke at the convention. He literally said, "Hey, we're going to Martha's Vineyard next year. You should join us." I was like, "Absolutely, yeah." So nothing against the bougie Negroes in the room that want to go to Martha's Vineyard. It's actually cool. It's actually a pretty nice place. But anyway, with that being said, um, the bank claimed that the money or that was used for this house was part of was sort of pulled from the loan, which they claim is a violation of the covenant as well. Um, I don't really know what happened here. I do know that it seemed that the Uncle Nearest people were saying, "Hey, you knew about this house. We had events at this house, and people from your company, from your bank, weren't actually there." It seemed like that's what I was reading. And again, I don't know. All I can know is this. My first thought was, um, what was documented and what wasn't, right? Like if they knew about the house, was it documented? Like, did you get a piece of paper saying, "Hey, we're about to use money to buy this house. Are you cool with that?" Right? And I think that would kind of clear a lot of things up. Um, and also the other thing that came to mind with this situation was it made me wonder what was the due diligence on the collateral in the first place? Meaning, what did the bank do to make sure that the collateral wasn't just what it was supposed to be, but that it was maintained at the level that it was supposed to be maintained? Whose responsibility was that? I think that part was kind of interesting. Because as you know, one thing that I've told you guys is that before you invest, you should investigate, right? And I told you that in terms of relationships. You make big investments when you marry somebody and people don't investigate, so they end up in divorce court. You should investigate before you make a business investment, before you take a job, before anything that requires or takes resources from you. You should investigate. In that way, you have as much information as you can, and you're going in and you're taking a calculated risk because you took the time to do the calculation. You understand? A lot of people don't take calculated risk. Remember, I don't think of risk like a normal person. I'm a highly abnormal human being when it comes to my perception of risk. Why? Well, because as a financial scientist, I spent a lot of time mathematically and probabilistically studying what risk looks like, manifestations of risk, the difference between risk that is real versus risk that is not real, how risk changes over time. All we did was sit around in my doctoral program and do mathematics to really understand risk and probability theory. So my brain's all over the place when you talk about risk. But at the end of the day, when you're talking about making an investment, there has to be some due diligence to make sure that you've done the best calculation possible to understand that risk. So I wonder whose responsibility was it to make sure that the collateral was what it was supposed to be and that the collateral is being protected and maintained, right? For example, how many of you invest on one of the apps? How many of you are buying stock on a regular basis? I want everybody in the room to say yes. If you don't say yes, I need you to fix that immediately. You guys know about the 5-year pledge. I told you 5-year pledge. Pick a $500 bill that you're paying, create another bill, which is the S&P 500. Put that money in consistently. In 5 years, you won't. You'll be financially secure, more so than most Americans. Okay. So everybody in here, okay, so you're all investing. Well, one thing you might notice if you've ever used margin to make an investment, meaning all margin is debt. This was kind of a type of margin, right? In a way, right? If you use margin and they need collateral, then they are going to lock down your collateral. Like if your collateral is a bunch of stocks that you've used to sell a covered call, they're going to not allow you to do anything with that stock during the time that you're in that transaction. If you want your collateral to be freed up, then you're going to have to reverse the transaction. So you sold a covered call because you wanted to generate some income. Well, you got the income, but then they're going to hold your collateral until the trade is done, right? Or if you sell a cash secured put, then the same thing. If your collateral is cash, they're going to lock down your cash. You cannot use it for anything else, and the cash will be freed once the deal is done. That's why, again, having that capital base is so powerful because if you invest for your kids when they're children, then they have a capital base, so that which gives them collateral. A person with collateral can get whatever they want down there. You can get income, you can get leverage, you can get all the stuff that people need, everything that people out here trapping for, killing for, dying for, sleeping with people to get to obtain. Your kid will already have that, and they won't have the financial problems that a lot of people have. Most people struggle in a capitalist society because they're financially desperate. They also struggle because not only they either don't have enough capital, or the type of capital they have is what you might call illiquid capital, capital that requires some work before you can actually liquidate it and convert it to cash. What do I mean by that? Your college degree is a form of human capital. So you are more valuable economically speaking when you have a degree than you are when you don't. But the problem is that in order for you to extract the liquidity from that capital, you got to go to work every day, right? And working is hard. Working sucks, especially when you get older and you just don't want to be at work all the time. You're missing time with your kids and all that. So one of the reasons that I put together like that training, how to make money without working, is because I want you to understand the difference between capital that requires labor versus capital that doesn't, or capital that requires additional investment versus capital where you don't have to make any investments. That's passive versus active investing. When you are going to school and you go to school 8 years so you can become a medical doctor, so you can make, 150, 200,000 a year, then you are investing in capital, but it's a type of capital that's not very liquid and it requires a tremendous amount of an added investment for you to make money. So you say, I want to make a lot of money, so I'm going to become a surgeon. Okay, good, awesome. So you go to school, 4 years of college, 4 years of med school, 2 years of your residency, or 2 years for the internship, another 5 years for the residency, whatever. So you get out of school and you're about 32, 33 years old, and you have the lost decade where all you were doing was studying all the time. So now you've got all this capital. Now I'm a surgeon. That makes me more valuable in the economy. Great. Now I want to ask you a question. The day I finished medical school and I done picked up my degree, I kissed my mama. I'm all proud because I got my cap and gown on and took all my pictures. And I say, I am somebody. I'm an asset now. I'm wealthy now. Let me ask you this question. At that particular moment, how much money have I made from all those years I spent in school? How much income have I received as a result of my medical degree on the day of graduation? 12 years, 12, 13 years of work. How much have I got? Allison, Allison, negative 500,000. I'm looking for zero, but that's a better way to put it. Man, zero would have put the answer I was looking for, but Alice's answer is the best. Alice, you're a genius. I love you. Yeah, so so negative 500,000. So on the day of graduation, you ain't even made no money yet. That kind of sucks, man. So what's happened here is that you've received this asset, and the asset hasn't really actually been activated yet. It's like somebody giving you a factory, and you're like, and they say this factory is worth $1 billion, but no one will buy it from you for $1 billion. But if you go in and you invest another $500 million and start making products in the factory, then you're going to be really rich. But what if you never get the chance to make that additional investment? You understand? Like, what if something happens and you either can't get the money to do it or whatever. Like, I don't know. Like the thing is that there's capital where you have to activate it, and the activation is really hard. Like, there's some businesses that you can start and you can have that are going to require 1,000 hours of your labor before the thing even starts to make freaking money. So it might be a great idea, and you might even have the idea structured and set up, but then you're like, damn, now I got to really start working to make this thing start thinking, to make this thing start moving. Do you see what I mean? That's very different from other kinds of capital where you can make the money very quickly, and it's very passive and you don't actually have to do any work. And in fact, if you haven't seen my training, How to Make Money Without Working, it's free. You can watch it. It's text the word money to that number 87948. So text money to 87948, and you can pick up that training, because literally that's the whole idea behind the selling of the stock options. Like if you've got a capital base, you can make money today. You can literally, I sent you guys, if you guys are already studying with me, I sent you guys a couple fast cash action plans. You'll get another one today. And literally, these are things where literally you could go in, punch in your app, and I did it yesterday. I pulled out like $10,000 because I wanted to do something. And this is real money. This is not fake. This is not hype. This is real stuff, right? And a lot of you are making that real money, right? So ultimately, I would encourage you to think about investing in terms of making sure that it's not just something that can make money, but it actually allows you to make money in the way that you find most appropriate, that you're happiest with. So let's circle back to the Uncle Nearest lawsuit so we can really talk about this. So they got this capital base, which is, inventory bottles or in cases of whiskey, which is cool. And the bank says that you didn't really have the amount of whiskey that you said you had. And also on top of that, you jeopardized our collateral by selling some of the whiskey, and you used some of the money to buy a house. I don't know what's fact from fiction, because I do know that if there's a dispute or if money gets lost, people, they'll go through the fine print to find any little violation that you have, because they're trying to get their money back. They're trying to come get you. So I don't know, how much of this is real versus shiesty stuff. I have no idea. But one of the other things about borrowing money is that there are typically these things called loan covenants. And these are just promises, lots of promises that are made. And it's really important to kind of understand that when you take money from other people, and this is something I brought up a long time ago, for example, when Umar Johnson was raising money for a school. When you borrow money from people, then you have tremendous accountability to the people that you're borrowing money from. That's you cannot get away from that. In the particular case of Umar School, I kind of said if people are donating for you to build this project, then you owe them updates. You owe them transparency. Transparency builds trust. Transparency builds trust. Think about it. If you are in a situation with somebody and they've got something of value, like for example, a daycare where you have taken your child to that daycare, would you give me a yes or no? Would you send your child to a daycare where they say, hey, we're just going to take your baby to this building and do things to your child, but you can't ever even investigate at all in terms of what we're doing. You'll never know what we're doing to your kid, but just drop them off and we'll give them back to you at 5 o'clock. Would anybody in this room send their child to a daycare like that? Would you feel safe dropping your child off at a daycare that says you can't drop in, you cannot have cameras here, you cannot find out, you cannot investigate anything. Just trust us. We're gonna just do things with your child and we won't even tell you what it is. Well, nobody would do that, right? And so basically that's an extreme example of why transparency is really important when it comes to trust. And trust and transparency are critical when it comes to having well-functioning financial markets or just a well-functioning society in general. So in this case, they feel that the transparency wasn't really there. The bank is arguing this, and that their collateral things were being done with their asset. Like we got these little financial babies that we dropped off, and you're not protecting our babies. You promised us this collateral. The collateral was connected to our little financial babies, and you're kind of messing us up. You're exposing us to risk that we did not sign up for. Like just like in a marriage, anybody ever see somebody get a divorce and they say, "I didn't sign up for this," right? So the same thing is happening there, right? Because when you make this covenant, it's an economic marriage. You're making vows, you're making promises. I promise, to protect your collateral. I promise to make sure that I don't spend your money on anything that you didn't tell me I could spend money on. I promise that I'm going to maintain a valuation of my company at a certain level. I think there was something in there that I saw about the company maintaining a value above 100 million, which is interesting, right? Because at that point you get into figuring out what method you use to actually value the company, right? Like I don't know if they're publicly traded. I didn't know. I don't think they're publicly traded. Maybe they are, and that's easy, right? You just add up the number of shares of stock and the price per share. But if they're not publicly traded, then you got a whole mess in terms of figuring out what the true value of the company is, right? So that's kind of the situation that I see there. And what differs with their situation versus Trump, who was also accused of overvaluing his assets so he could get a bigger loan, is that in the case of Uncle Nearest, that company, from what I understand, is in what is referred to as receivership. That basically means somebody else is going to be running your company because they've lost trust in the management to do a good job. So they say, look, to protect our collateral, the judge ruled this, we're going to take your company and we're going to run it. And we're going to give it back when we feel confident that we've been able to get, a return on investment. I don't know what the conditions of the receivership are. And if I get something wrong, then forgive me because it's not meant in any malicious way. Well, in the Trump case, that was actually brought by the state of New York. That was not brought by a private lender. Private lender just wants to protect their collateral. In the Trump case, that was brought by the government. The government's objective is to protect society from fraudulent behavior. So what they did in the Trump case, and I think he did actually lose this, Letitia James and those people kind of went after him, is they basically restricted his ability to do business in the state of New York, and they also fined him about $355 million or something like that. Now that he's president, he's probably made $2-3 billion or more just by utilizing his role as one of the most powerful people on the planet. But still, $355 million is still a lot of money. So that's the difference in terms of these situations. What's interesting to me, and I still don't quite understand the answer to this, is when does so if you're alleging this kind of fraud, when does it spill over into criminal behavior? Because I've also seen people get criminally charged for misrepresenting themselves on financial statements or misrepresenting their collateral, or putting things on paper that ended up not being true. And I'm still not sure about that. I mean, some of you may be attorneys. I know we got some smart lawyers in this class who could probably answer the question better than me. But that was the part that I thought was kind of strange. Was and maybe in the case of Uncle Nearest, if the banks couldn't get their money, maybe they would try to file for criminal charges. Because technically, if you're saying, look, they're stealing our money, then that's kind of criminal, right? And this tells you about the nuances in terms of how our society deals with white collar incidents versus non-white collar. I guess we call it blue collar or whatever. And so I don't know. I don't know how it's going to work out for them. I will say this: the question that I would ask the people at Uncle Nearest is, I would just ask, and I wouldn't ask it I'm not asking in a mean way, but I would ask them, um, did you really need to borrow $108 million? Like, tell me why you felt 108 was the number that you really needed. Because from what I understood, I got the sense that this company was already doing pretty well and that they were growing. And I understand it. Sometimes we take on debt, and this is the lesson. This is the part of the lesson. So I want you to understand why I'm bringing this up. Um, Sometimes we see the reason we take on debt, or we will bring in an investor or raise money, is because we see an opportunity down the horizon and we say, gosh, dang it, if I can get money, I can pursue this opportunity. Like in the Black Business School, like we are really good at what we do. We have excellent people that are doing excellent work, and we've reached a lot of people, and we bootstrapped everything. We didn't really borrow a ton of money to do this, and we reach more people than most HBCUs. And I believe we actually do a better job educating them on Black wealth than any university in the country, because we're specific. We're like, no, ownership matters, entrepreneurship matters, stock market investing matters, real estate matters. You can get a job after that. If you want to get a job too, cool. Most universities train you to get a job. We train you to create a job. And also, we believe in educating the entire family. We also want to integrate mental health, physical health, and culture into the wealth conversation, so you'll understand how it's all connected. It's an ecosystem, like growing flowers in a greenhouse versus trying to grow flowers in the desert. You can't grow flowers in the desert, but you can grow them quite well in the greenhouse. So before you start thinking about the type of flower you want to plant, you need to ask yourself, what is the soil that I'm planting it in? Do you understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Before you say we want to grow tomatoes or whatever, you got to say, well, what kind of flowers or what kind of plants grow best in this environment? And then also, how do we engage in some degree of climate control so that when we pick the plant we want to grow, we maximize the probability that it's going to grow? So you cannot talk about Black wealth without talking about Black culture. You cannot talk about Black wealth without talking about intergenerational curses. You cannot talk about Black wealth without talking about mental health, trauma, racism, systematic barriers, because that is the ecosystem that we've been forced to operate in. And so, in order for us to grow better flowers, we got to change the temperature. We got to change the environment, right? And that's why I get so deeply involved in conversations about culture, because you give me sloppy, like uncounterproductive culture where people are getting shot up in the street, families are breaking apart, people have undiagnosed, untreated trauma. You're gonna build no wealth out of that. You can go to the best wealth building institutions on the planet and you'll still be broke. As soon as you get money, you're gonna lose it because the culture will eat through your cash flow like termites. Literally, you build a beautiful house and it's got termites in the foundation, then your house, you wasted your time. Stop building. Get rid of the termites first. Okay. So anyway, with that being said, with Uncle Nearest, what's interesting to me is I said, $108 million, that is so much money. I wonder what would have happened if they were able to borrow 30 million. Would they have still been able to grow with 30 million? Would they have still been able to be profitable? Um, because I would guess that their collateral, that an honest reflection of their collateral, even a conservative reflection, like, hey, look, we could borrow 108 million, but we're just going to do 30 because we just want to make sure. Would that have still been a path to profitability and growth that would have been adequate? One of the things that this is one of the reasons why I warn you about becoming a hardcore capitalist. This is really important. This is why I'm not a capitalist. I'm a little bit of a capitalist, but not hardcore. Is that capitalism is obsessed with growth. capitalism is like grow, grow, grow at all costs. If you listen to the guys in Silicon Valley, we move fast and break things, and every single company that's publicly traded, they're in this constant rat race where they're trying to constantly grow. And so capitalism, at least the way it's practiced in America, does not know the meaning of the word enough. There is no such thing as a word enough. You made a billion last quarter. You need to make 1.2 billion now. You made 10 billion. You got to make 11 billion. And that is not sustainable. That's a Ponzi scheme. And that pressure to grow, grow, grow pushes your limits to the point where you go beyond simply trying to be creative enough to find growth that by any means necessary. But next thing you know, and I'm not saying they did this, I'm not saying Uncle Nearest did this, I'm saying there are examples of companies that have done this, where they start cooking the books and creative accounting and putting numbers in a certain way and timing the cash flow in a certain way, borrowing more than they need to borrow, all so they can grow, 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 grow. And that's no different from like what you see on social media where everybody's trying to Instagram flex or keep up with the Joneses. And people go into debt trying to keep up with the Joneses. And I saw so-and-so got a new leather couch. I need one too. He's driving a Mercedes. I got to have a Benz too. He's wearing $1,000 suits. I got to wear $1,000 suits too. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that, because what happens is with leverage of that capacity, you're giving yourself a smaller and smaller margin of error. Yeah, you get to brag and say we've got the biggest company in the okay, good. Slow clap for you, but I mean, when you over leverage, it's like being in a sports car where you're driving 140 miles an hour down the freeway, and if one little thing goes wrong, kaboom. Everything you work for, gone, dead. And I don't know what happened here. I'm not in any way judging the people at Uncle Nearest. I want to be clear because I know sometimes my words can travel, my name can travel, and people can get offended because they think that I'm just sitting here attacking what they did. I'm not attacking it. I really would want to know, like, was 108 million necessary, or did we want to really accelerate our growth to a point where we were kind of faking it till we make it a little bit, because what really gave me pause was it didn't seem like they were denying that there was an exaggeration of the collateral. I didn't see a denial saying, hey, we didn't do that. From what I saw they were saying, it seemed, again, my opinion, that it did happen, but it wasn't our fault. Do you see? And maybe, and Shirley's right, maybe they can renegotiate things like that. I hope that they can. But if things are in receivership, I don't think that's good. I think that's a problem. I think that's a problem. And then also the last little point on that too is, and I've seen this happen. This is a mistake I've made. So, everybody can make this mistake is oversight. If the CFO was doing something rogue, there are checks and balances that I suggest you put into your company when you build your family business, stuff like that. And one good check and balance that they say works really well is to have someone go in and audit what the accountant or what the CFO is doing. That way, one person isn't checking themselves because they could be over there cooking all kinds of chaos and no one knows. And I've seen it happen. I've had a time where somebody went in behind another person and said, "Did you know that they were doing this?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't. What? Oh my God, And so ultimately, I will just tell you that those checks and balances are absolutely essential for a business, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're the CEO of the business, it's going to you're the one that's going to be accountable for all the good and the bad things that happen in that company. And in fact, I can even think of other times. I know, for example, when the Tulsa real estate fund went south, a lot of people thought that I was doing things with the Tulsa real estate, but I was like, I don't know anything about what's going on there. I don't. I invested, and I lost money. Didn't make any money. I've never been to a board meeting. I don't know the details. And then my accountant was like, did you see this and this and this? I'm like, oh God, I didn't know that was happening, right? Because it wasn't my company, right? But my mistake there was even letting my name get attached to it in that way, right? With, sort of not having that clear distinction. And so it can happen to anybody. But I would say that this is a lesson. These are all business lessons. And the thing about it too is that when you're dealing with bigger and bigger amounts of money, you just have to be triply careful. And conservatism really wins when you're talking about big money situations. When you're talking about massive amounts of wealth, if you're making 1 million a year, 2 million a year, 5 million a year, why do you have to rush it? Why do you have to be extreme? Why do you have to take crazy chances? Why not stick to the rivers and the lakes that you're used to, instead of chasing waterfalls? I'm not saying that this is what happened here, but again, I go back to the size of that loan because all debt really is an outside investment capital. All it really is what I call it's what I call a financial time machine. It's a financial time machine. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's say that you start a business and it's a really great business and you're making 100,000 a year and and people love your product. And then you realize, hey, if I was able to sell 3 times more, then I can make 3 times more money. But to grow, it requires investment. It requires capital. So you don't have the capital that you need. So you think, oh, let me go borrow the capital or get an investor, right? So you bring in these outside forces, either a bank or a lender or of some other type or an investor, and you accelerate, right? Now that we've got more capital, we can grow, and we get excited whenever you read on social media that some company was able to raise 10 million in funding or whatever. We get excited. I don't get excited because I know what that means. Right? It doesn't excite me because I'm like, oh, wow, now you've really put yourself in a tough spot. It's either you're gonna have to crap or get off the pot. Now you're gonna get some outside pressure. So, like for example, raising money from venture capital firms for black-owned businesses is not always a good thing. There was actually a company where the CEO, he was a really smart guy, like a medical doctor, and he had a great idea. And he came in. He actually came on my platform and talked about it. I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to. I don't want to embarrass the poor guy. And the reason that he'd got a lot of notoriety is because he'd raised like $30 million from the white boys. And I remember thinking, like, I didn't ask the question because if I ask hard questions, people think I'm being a hater because I like the guy. So I didn't. I just listened. I asked my questions in my own head. And my question I was asking in my head was, are you really ready to take on that kind of money? Because I don't know if I've seen proof of concept behind what you're doing. This is something to be really careful about when you start a business. Just because you can raise a lot of money doesn't mean you need a lot of money. It's like if you're not careful, you could be like a 7-year-old driving a race car in a NASCAR race and you're gonna crash the damn thing. You need to start with a little go-kart and make sure that you master the go-kart and then you work your way up to the big boy cars. You don't start off with a car going 200 miles an hour, son, because that's going to kill you. And so there's actually a whole theory about this in finance. They've written thousands of research papers on this, and it's called the free cash flow problem. The free cash flow problem basically says that when companies can raise too much money too fast, they waste it. Why? Well, because a lot of times your ideas have not been fully tested. You're not efficient at running your business. So, and a lot of you in here, in fact, I bet a lot of you, tell me if you're one in this category. There's probably a lot of you that have little businesses that are making money and they're really great, and you really wish you could raise more money. Or you got a great idea and you're like, gosh, if I could get someone. In fact, let me ask you all a question. How many of y'all have an idea for a business that you've always wanted to start? Or maybe you have a patent or something that I know y'all out there because I see y'all at the convention every year. People hand me a big stack of documents. I've got a patent on a thing that's gonna change the black community and make $1 billion. And I'm like, I don't really know. My suitcase is full of paper and some stuff. I can't take this home. But anyway, so think about this. Imagine if somebody came up and said, I'm gonna give you $3 million for your idea. And you just got to pay me back once your great idea takes off and makes a lot of money. I bet a lot of you in here would probably take that money. And I'm just here to tell you that you should probably think twice before you do that if you ever get that opportunity. Number one, because you need to understand all money ain't good money. So a lot of times this happens a lot with venture capitalists. They will come, they should be called vulture capitalists because some of them will come in and eat away at your business because they want to protect their collateral. They want to protect their investment. So they're going to get on your board. They're going to control the way you make decisions. They're going to extract massive amounts of income for themselves because it's like dating somebody. It's like dating somebody who doesn't really plan to marry you and be with you till death do you part. They're dating you because they're planning on breaking up with you in 2 or 3 years, maybe 5 years. So they know the relationship is going to have an ending. They're just trying to make sure the ending is one that really works for them. So what I would say is if a venture capitalist came up and said, "Gosh, Dr. Boyce, we love what you're doing with the Black Business School. It's going really well. We want to give you $10 million." I would say, "No, thank you. I don't want your money. Your money's not good here." And it's not because we couldn't use it. I mean, I spent 12 hours on the phone with Kanye West only because I was hopeful that he would consider using some of that money he's wasting on some of the stuff that we're doing, right? It did not work out, but I tried. And I tried because I was thinking if you get capital from the right source, from somebody who believes in the mission, then you can do amazing things. Um, but if that was a conversation with somebody else, like Bank of America or the Trump administration or the Biden administration or a Democratic Party or somebody like that, I wouldn't have that conversation at all because I know how they operate. People don't give you money for nothing, but you know this, you know these things. That's why if your daughter gets, $1,000 put in her cash app from the local drug dealer, you're probably going to investigate that. You're going to become concerned, right? Because you know that she's paying something to get that money. You know, or he, at the very least, he's expecting something for that money, right? So be patient with yourself, right? Um, Make sure that when you get capital, think of it like drinking water. Just because you're giving me water doesn't mean it's healthy water. It could be drugged, it could be polluted, right? And there's a lot of polluted money in America. And this is one of the challenges that the Black community has, not Uncle Nearest. I'm not talking about them, I'm just talking about the community in general, is that we take up money from a lot of people we should never be taking money from. And the United States does this. They take a lot of money from the Israelis and different in APAC, the politicians do. And look at what they got the government doing. I mean, now people are saying that the whole Iraq war was driven because the Zionists basically forced the United States into this terrible war that ended up costing us insane amounts of money and killing countless people, right? So, deals with the devil, thank you, Sonia. That's the great way to put it, are something that you have to be cautious about because the devil usually shows up with a big bank account. That's how they got people to go to Diddy parties. The devil knows how to find your weak spot, find your greatest temptation. The devil knows your dreams, and he will come and offer your dreams on a silver platter. And if you don't do your due diligence, if you don't investigate before you invest, then you can find yourself in a situation that could have been avoidable. So, what I'll say in conclusion, in terms of the Uncle Nearest thing, is I hope they work it out. I hope they get their company back. I hope they go on and make $1 trillion. But at the same time, I think that there's lessons we can all learn from this. And if you're building your little business, build with what you got. They call that bootstrapping. Bootstrapping is where you just you do the best you can with what you got. You live within your means. You just reinvest the profits that you make, and you have a natural growth rate that is more consistent with not just allowing you to grow financially, but it gives you chances, opportunities to learn as time goes along, right? And so it's frustrating though because sometimes you have to wait a little while, but really sometimes God makes you wait because you ain't really ready. And the thing is, when you have a great idea, it's very easy. It's very easy to fall in love with the idea. It's easy to imagine that this is an idea that is absolutely going to work, that there are no flaws in this idea. And let me tell you, as a person who has come up with 1,000 flawed ideas, you don't know until you know. And when I tell you, you don't know until you know, I hope you'll hear me when I say I'm a 54-year-old finance professor who will tell you, you don't know until you know. Trey Baker's coming in at some point. Trey Baker is a brilliant guy. He went to Harvard. He's 100% pro-black. He spoke at the All-Black National Convention. And I remember Trey, I've known Trey for about 17 years. And I remember an idea Trey had, and he was actually going to work with my brother Lawrence, and they laid out all the financials, they laid out the blueprint, they laid out the plan. It looked amazing. I said, "Oh yeah, this is going to be great. This is going to change the world." And now when me and Trey bring up that idea, we just laugh because it didn't turn out the way we thought it would turn out. So the thing is, you don't know until you know. And that's why you have to be careful with how much debt you take to put behind an idea. Because if the idea doesn't work out, you still got to pay the money back. You still owe it. The bank doesn't give a damn if your dream didn't process properly or if your dream is deferred. They're going to want their money. So just be really careful about that. Nasim, did you say that Trey's your first cousin? Well, you're lucky. You got a brilliant cousin because Trey is a great man, and I'm going to bring him in. In fact, I got to go because I'm actually going to give him a call because I just respect the guy so much. So anyway, with that being said, Chanel, did you put the link? I think you put the link to Coin in the chat. So anybody who wants to join the next cohort of the stock options program, Coin. There's a discount code actually that will give you 40% off, and that's specifically for Prime members or for members of this class. Actually, not just Prime members, but also those of you who are in this class. I'll put the link in the chat so you guys can take a look at it and decide if you can take a look and decide if you want to join us. And also, just so you know, the All Black National Convention is going to be in Brooklyn next year. And those passes are the early bird version of those passes are available now. The early bird will last for another 3 days, and then we'll go back to regular price. So if you want to lock your spot in now at a discount, feel free to go to allblacknationalconvention.com. That's allblacknationalconvention.com. And for those who don't know, we're going to go back to our regular format next year. We're going to have our children's track. We're actually going to make that bigger than ever, where we're really going to drill heavily into educating the kids in real time, in real life. Also, we found that you have a strong interest in things like stock options and cryptocurrency, stuff like that. So we're going to expand that for next year. Those breakout sessions were absolutely packed. And let me see. I know Malik Yoba said he would make it for next year, so he'll be. I assume he'll be able to come by. And but then also on top of that, we're going to have a lot of experts in everything from AI to relationships and family to medical issues to real estate, all kinds of stuff, like people like Constance Carter, Dr. Lene Javed, et cetera. So anyway, it's allblacknationalconvention.com if you want to take a look. And if you're not on the text list for this class yet, text the word morning to the number 87948. So text morning to 87948. We meet every single morning, 7 days a week at 10 a.m. because we are serious about Black wealth and we're going to get this done. So God bless you guys. Have a wonderful day. And one more thing too I'll mention is that if you are connected with the people from Uncle Nearest and the CEO wants to come in and talk about what they're doing and what's going on, I'd be happy to host her and hear that side of the story. So I'm not here to speak on anything that might be sound derogatory or defamatory toward anybody. That's not the goal. The goal is really I care about you. I'm not really worried about the world. I think about the people in this space because I want you to be as smart as possible because I know that this is the secret. This is the thing that's going to make us great again, and we're going to get this done. So God bless you guys. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you soon. Take care. Peace.